Hi, I'm Jeremy, and today we're going to look at the 13th game in my series on the German Game of the Year, or the Spiel des Jahres winners. And this game is Qwirkle, the 2011 winner. This is an abstract game, very similar to Scrabble, except that instead of forming words, players will be forming patterns of abstract colors and shapes. This game was designed by Susan McKinley Ross, and it came out in the US a few years before it came out in Germany, and it, like I said, won the award in 2011. The game plays for ages 6 and up in about 30 minutes or so, and it's for 2 to 4 players. I'll take a moment to show you the very simple rules of this game, and then I'll give you my thoughts on it. In Qwirkle, the only components are going to be this bag of 108 tiles, and these are nice thick wooden tiles. And the way that the game plays is at the start of the game, and this is several rounds into the game, whichever player can play the most tiles that share one attribute will begin. So by one attribute, that would either be all in one color, as you would see in this row, or all in one shape of different colors, as you would see in this row. And the trick is that a shape can't be repeated in a row of like color, and a color can't be repeated in a row of like shape. So the tiles are going to be placed onto a shared space to form a grid, almost as if a Scrabble game was being played. And then each player is going to draw 6 tiles that they'll keep in secret from the other players, and then be able to begin on their plays. So essentially what each player is going to do on their turn is they could either add tiles to the display and score points, or they could swap tiles, any number of tiles, and draw more tiles from the bag. Typically, though, you'll want to add tiles to the display. And you could only add tiles within one line. So, for example, if it was this player's turn, they might choose to add this one here, and then they might extend this line like such. So you can see here, they've added these 3 here, but they also extend this line. And the way that scoring works in this game is that you will score points for every line that you contributed to. So for example, this move here would be 1, 2, 3 points for this line, plus 1, 2, 3, 4 points for that line. So that player would score 7 points on that turn. Then they would just redraw up to 6 tiles. And this is essentially how simple the game is going to work. Now, if it was this player's turn, they would have an opportunity to do what is called a Qwirkle, which is where the game gets its name. And that is essentially what happens whenever you complete a line of 6 tiles. Because you cannot repeat a symbol in a line with like colors, or if I repeat a color in a line with like symbols, the maximum that any line would be able to hold would be 6. So this 6 tile here would complete that column. They could also add these 2. And again, this would complete what's called a Qwirkle because it's the 6th tile in a line. They would score for this 1, 2, 3, and then they would also score 6 points for this column. So that'd be 6 plus 3. Plus, because they completed a Qwirkle, they get an extra 6 points. So that'd be 15 total points for that move. And then they would just draw back up to 6. So play will just simply go like this, back and forth, with players placing tiles and scoring points, sometimes having to swap their tiles until all of the bag is empty, and then until one player plays all of their tiles. The player who does that will get 6 bonus points for completing the end of the game, and then whichever player has the most points at the end of the game will be the winner. Alright, so that is Qwirkle, and I think, as you can see, this is one of the simplest games that I've done a video on. That might be a record time for a rules explanation. And I think that is an asset of the game, and it helps to explain why it won the Spiel des Jahres award. This is a very approachable game. The fact that Scrabble exists makes the game even more second nature to families who might pick the game up and try to learn it. I think that the game is very easy to learn, very easy to teach, and most people enjoy the activity of, placing tiles onto the grid. I think that where it might come up a little bit short in my personal taste is that it does feel almost like an activity. A lot of your choices are going to feel scripted, just based on the tiles that you have and the board layout. There's usually a very obvious optimal move. That's not to say that there aren't some lighter strategies that you could go into. For example, playing moves so that you're not setting up an opponent is usually good, or you could sometimes manipulate the grid so that completing a Qwirkle becomes impossible. That could be a good move. But these are, to me, relatively second nature. There's a similar game to this called Ingenious by Reiner Knizia, which was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres a few years earlier, and I find that that's a much more interesting game than this, which is very similar exercise in matching colors and shapes on a board. But this game is fine, and I don't exactly mind playing it. It's just not something I tend to pick. It's very approachable, and that's terrific. But at the same time, it almost feels kind of passive, especially if you compare it to something like Scrabble, which does require some sort of skill set, if not exactly skill, in the form of large vocabulary. Another issue with this game, personally, is that it doesn't seem to have that much of an arc. You just get this slow accumulation of points throughout the game, most of your plays. Maybe you'll get lucky and score a Qwirkle from now and then, or maybe you'll be able to do a bigger play than on most turns. But generally, there aren't that many exciting moments during the game. It's tough to plan because of the ever-changing nature of the game, and that's just that tends to push the game away from something that I tend to enjoy in games. I will say that the game did come out with several of these expansion boards, which you could acquire, and I believe some copies of the game now come with them. And these have essentially they're pre-printed boards where you're going to be playing on, as opposed to just playing on an open grid. And they can give you either the opportunity to collect bonus tokens or to collect bonus points, almost as if it were a Scrabble board. And these do make the game, I think, slightly better, just because they give you something to aim for. It's just gives it adds events to a game that is, for me, slightly uneventful. Again, that's not to denigrate the game. I think for its audience and for the what this award is trying to aim for, this is perfectly fine. I think most people, casual gamers will enjoy this game, and even know some actual hardcore gamers who do like this game and think that it can be played at a higher level. It's just something that I haven't personally gotten to that point with the game so far. So this is not meant to sound like a negative review. It's just essentially reflecting my experiences with the game. So I guess I'll leave it at that. And that is Qwirkle. Thanks for watching.